Welcome to Z-Book Successful Authors Podcast. And with me, I have Carolyn Hartley, the author and publisher of a new #1 bestseller on Amazon, Reconciliation, Atone the Devil in Buried Sunshine. Hi, Carolyn. How you doing?
Eric, I'm great. I'm so glad to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, me too. Murphy's Law struck again, huh? It took us 30 minutes to finally get it together.
Smart people.
Yep. But where are you now?
I'm in South Carolina. I'm in a little place, kind of a big lake called Lake Murray. It's in the middle of the South, the middle of South Carolina. And we're about maybe 90 minutes or so from the coast.
And how's the weather?
The weather is chilly today, but chilly to us means 57 degrees.
Yeah, okay. That's it's colder here right now. Winter's coming. Winter's coming in Germany. We had snow the other day, but it melted right away. So, okay. So you've got a new #1 release. You're an author and a publisher. So wait, before we get into the book, what about your publishing? You're a publisher too?
I am, Eric. Thanks for asking. I've been a publisher since 1985.
Ooh.
And I started out as a book packager. So a book packager is like an outsourced department, a publishing department. And it started mainly with McGraw-Hill and Prentice Hall, Houghton Mifflin, mainly because they didn't have the resources in-house to do all of the work. And so they would send it out to my little company and say, how far can you take this? Or they'd say, this is the subject we want. Go find someone to write it. If you can design it, set it up with an imaging group so that they can pull it all together into old-fashioned software, which is, not even used anymore, Quark Express. And so whatever they needed to have done, that's what we would do for them. Then,
interesting.
It was fascinating, and sometimes it even included marketing. So if a publishing house had a book and they really believed that it was going to be a good, strong seller, and that was almost all nonfiction, okay, hardly ever fiction. But if they had a book that they thought was going to do really well, and they needed to get it into, say, the community colleges or into a university or whatever, then we would help with the marketing of that, especially in the United States. Most of these companies were in the US.
Interesting. So you probably know the story. Oh man, I forgot his name. The famous book packager in New York. He's like 50 years ago, he started a company and he did A/B tests with the book covers. All he did was change the covers and package them different, and he made bestsellers all the time. Do you remember? This was a long time ago. You know who that was?
I don't remember his name, but it's a great strategy because just by changing the cover, you can change the sales.
Yeah, I'm going to find that one out. It's a great story. And yeah, so what got you into writing then?
Well, I started in writing. That was about in 1985 as well. Well, a little bit earlier than that, but I liked healthcare and I loved the healthcare consumers. I liked their stories. And I was also, my training is in investigative journalism. And so that kind of helped with a lot of the research that I needed for the novels. But I wasn't very good at first. As a writer, so I decided to go get a master's degree. That helped quite a bit too, because the pressure was on to do quite a bit more. So Eric, I've got my master's degree in medical anthropology.
Ooh, heavy.
And philosophy, which means, how did we do what we did, and why did we do what we were doing back in the dark ages or in the current technology era as well. And it just allowed me to ask a lot of questions. And the deeper I got into journalism, the more I heard stories going in my head. And the more I wanted to know, well, what's your story? And there's some people who just made such an impact on me, on my life. and I wanted to know more things about them, Eric, but I couldn't write what I knew. So I decided to change it up a little bit and add some of those characters and make them into fiction.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but they said, you will be remembered by your stories. And nonfiction doesn't cut it,
No,
So you got a rich history, though. So you were an investigative journalist. Oh, boy. I'm going to not talk about politics, but because we know journalism has taken a hit in the last, 8 years. It's gotten a bad name.
Right.
And so who is my favorite journalist right now is Glenn Greenwald. Who's yours?
Oh, goodness. My oldest favorite of all was Eric Severide. I love the way that he covered World War II. I just liked his voice, Walter Cronkite. I'm going way back. My current journalist, I think the one that is my favorite is, I like Savannah Guthrie because she's so cordial, and yet she's a lawyer. So it comes right down to nailing the subject of her interview. She asks all those questions with a smile, and then the person on the other side is almost obligated to smile back and say, nah, not so much.
I'm gonna have to look her up. Sounds familiar. I'm probably
the Today Show. Co-host.
Oh, okay.
On NBC.
Yeah. So, transitioning from nonfiction to fiction is one of my personal challenges. So, how did you do that?
Yeah. Let me just say that writing nonfiction is such a good training ground for writing fiction, because you're always on deadline when you're doing nonfiction. It is, you have to write tight in nonfiction as well. So fiction allows you to do a little bit more free thinking and free writing, but fiction, in my category, which is historical fiction, fiction requires so much research, historical fiction. And I love the research part of things.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to write nonfiction just because you have to keep it true. Generally speaking, you have to keep it true and you have to look for quotes. Fiction, when I started writing fiction, I was starting to footnote everything. And my first editor, my first agent said, get those footnotes out of here.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Got to go back to your nonfiction, your journal.
Exactly.
But I do keep a bibliography for every fiction book that I do now, just to make sure that people know that the research is back there. I think one of the best things I get to do is to do a lot more free thought. So in fiction, I can write a whole lot of junk, knowing that I can come back in as the editor, and I make an appointment with my editor. Don't come back until 2:00 in the afternoon. Otherwise, she'll sit right there on my shoulder and she'll say, you shouldn't have said that. That's not true. So I make an appointment with her to come back, and she shows up every afternoon at 2:00. I can count on it.
Cool. That's accountability.
Well, that's from journalism. It's you got to be accountable. Somebody's going to call your editor-in-chief and say, where did you get this story? And who are who are your resources? So between me and my editor-in-chief, we would know who the resources were, but we didn't always reveal them. And
for historical fiction, you can also charge more in Amazon. They're typically $1 to $2 more than a normal romance or fiction, science fiction book. So historical fiction is a really good category in Amazon. Yeah.
I like hearing that.
You
just jumped up.
You just add $1 to your price. Look at the other books in romance, and then whatever, add $1 to your price easily.
Well, I like that international pricing point. I think that's great. I'm not sure that in the States we all agree with that, but I'll give it a try.
Yeah, well, you can see all the other books in historical fiction, and you'll see they are consistently more expensive than science fiction, romance, etc. So,
And
well,
I
tell
think,
us about your book finally.
yeah,
Tell us about the story here.
well, I'd love to tell you about it. So these
Yeah.
are people who I worked with in my investigative journal days, but
Oh,
they take on the character of multiple characters. So this was my first book, and this is Redemption. Redemption kicked it off, and it's the first book in the Buried Sunshine story, in the Buried Sunshine series. Buried Sunshine is Cole. So, oh, yeah.
yeah,
So,
cool.
so this is the Redemption was the first time that we saw Adele, and Adele Christina Dawson. She is the oldest sibling of multiple stepchildren. So she's got half brothers and sisters, and it takes place during the Depression, where her mother died giving birth to the youngest child. Reconciliation, however, I love this picture of Adele. I just, she's straight out of a photo. She's straight out of a Photoshop, but I
Is
wish
it?
she would have looked like this. I think
Yeah.
she did. But
Where did you get the photo?
I'm sorry,
Where did you get the photo?
I bought it from Shutterstock.
Oh, okay, okay. Might have known her or something. That might be but yeah, cool.
You might know
Yeah.
her, but she was the model, and she put her, so I paid, Shutterstock to be able to put her in print.
Yeah.
And Shutterstock, don't come after me because I paid for it.
Yeah.
But now she is back in West Virginia, and so Adele is the child who was born into wealth. So it's kind of a rags to riches story, but it's riches to rags, actually, the story. And then she finds her way to come back into riches again, but along the way, she finds secrets about her family that she never knew about. This is her birth family. So she's finding out that her family not only owned a coal mine in southern West Virginia, but it's loaded with extortion and greed and love. A lot of the corruption that was going on in her family. And at 19 years old, she inherits a coal mine because everybody else in her family is dead. So it's at the beginning of World War II, and her job now is to stabilize this coal mine. But her stepfather, who was originally from West Virginia, he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. So he's trying to sabotage everything that she does. And she has deadlines that she has to meet because Great Britain, in coal, United States provide a lot of coal, which they melted into steel. And they were hungry. Great Britain and Europe was hungry for steel for the United States at the beginning of World War II. So tremendous amounts of research in coal. And that was one of the things, as I was researching it, as I was learning about coal, I wanted Adele to learn about coal as well. So I had to fill myself with a lot of information so that she could learn about it through the story.
That's cool. And that's not all. There's also 8 other children.
There are. And so, that's very Depression habit. And that is lots of children, especially in a farming community. We're going to have to get more kids along here. But in order to keep them safe and to keep them in order, Adele's mother named all of her children in alphabetical order. So there's Adele, and then there's the twins, Benita and Brianna, and Colette, and Deirdre, Alicia, Faye. Giles died in childbirth, Howard died in childbirth, and Isaac is still living. So when I'm counting all the kids, I go A, B, B, C, D. So I have to remember how many children there are, but they all have their own personality in reconciliation. So in doing this book, that's one of the things that my editor said, there's a lot of kids in here, you've got to give them a personality. So I worked hard to make sure that all the girls, and one boy, bless his heart, all the girls had their own idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, I was reading a little of your book, by the way, and
cool.
she's not too happy or doesn't understand why her mother had so many kids with this new dude, right?
Yes, that's right. So, but we solved that problem at the end of Redemption. That's one of the comments that I got from almost all of the readers. Why did she marry this guy? So I had to write a book to explain why she married him. And he, because there was so much extortion in the early days, he was
Mm.
actually her original rescuer. He was the
Mhm.
one when when Selma, that's the mother, when Selma died or when she got in trouble in West Virginia, August Beck, who we don't necessarily like too much, August Beck is the one who said, I will take you away from West Virginia, away from this corruption, and I will give you a new life in Missouri. But
Mm.
along the way, he met up with a lot of problems. He met up with the Great Depression and huge flooding.
Mm.
Farmers have to put up with a lot of flooding issues, especially along the Mississippi River. So flooding, depression, he just was a sourpuss after having all of these things go wrong. And that's when he started being pretty abusive.
Sounds like tension.
Well, it's what it's the plot. And when you're talking
Yeah.
about fiction, there's so many
Yeah.
different pieces that come together in fiction, whereas in nonfiction, it's pretty flat. I mean, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say that because I'm going to get this. I get a ton of emails from nonfiction writers. But nonfiction, especially when you're trying to do educational, it's this is what's going on, and this is how you do it. This is how you manage stuff. Whereas in fiction, you've got all these different dimensions. You got to have the plot, you have to have continuity, and you can't have one character with blue eyes one day and brown eyes, later on. And so there's just a lot of things to watch for.
Yeah. So, well, without giving away too much of the book, did you use a template like the hero's journey or the 3-act play, something like that?
I did not use a template, and I don't use templates when I'm writing fiction so far. It doesn't mean I'm not going to at some point, but what I do is I use sticky notes, Eric. And so every time my characters talk to me. And so I was in the middle of writing something, and Benita, who is the sassier of the two twins, Benita came back to me and said, "That's not what happened."
Cool.
Oh,
The
well,
voice
maybe
is
you'll
in your
tell me
head.
what did happen.
Yeah.
So she did. So I've got all these sticky notes, and I as ideas come to me, then I write them on the sticky notes and I put them on the wall. And I know you can't see my wall, but I'm looking at it. And so when I move, it's almost like doing a screenplay. As they do something new, I'll move their particular activity into Act 1, Act 2, or Act 3. And the denouement, or the final ending, has got to be something that is so compelling people are willing to stay with the novel until the end of it.
It's like storyboarding.
That's what fiction writing is.
Yeah, cool.
Is writing a story, storyboarding.
So okay, then what happens in this story? I mean, you don't have to give away anything if you don't want to, but then what? So then she's learning about coal and all of her family's secrets. She finds it like basically a treasure chest, and then okay, then what happens?
Yeah. Well, she's going to have to deal with her stepfather, so she does find the love of her life. So the good news is that at 20 years old, she finally gets, that's the epilogue, she gets to get married. And the best part, the hardest part for me, was to make sure that she made friends with her sisters again. So I wanted her sisters to pile up and be helpful to her, because in Redemption, they were pretty unkind to her. She was a rich little, girl who was a little snobby and had to come to terms with being a girl who lived in poverty, whereas her sisters were born in poverty. What drives Adele is that she understood the love of her mother, and she knew what it was like to grow up with affluence, and she knew what it was like to have affluence taken away from her. So what she wants to do in reconciliation is to show that same love to her sisters, and in return, they start loving her back to a point that they are willing to protect her when she's under attack. So there's book 3 coming, and
Great.
in book 3, so that the books are redemption, reconciliation, and the third book is rebellion. Because Benita, the twin, if you've read a little bit, you get to know that Benita is the one who's got attitude. And so Benita is going to be the focus of most of book 3. There was a lot of attention in the United States around the civil rights movement, even as far back as 1929 to 1935. And Benita was an advocate for all the migrant farmers that came up from the South, and she walked alongside of many of the migrant farmers, and now she wants to stand up for them.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Oh yeah. So what year does it take place?
This it was the Shareholders Protest, and that was in 1939.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we're not going to move too far into World War II. I'm not ready to research all of World War II. I want to get on to writing some short stories, or at least publishing some short stories.
It's a tough question, isn't it? Because if you start writing about World War II in the book, then you kind of have to finish it, right? It's a huge topic, so what was that, Chekhov's gun? If it's on the mantle in the scene, it has to be used later on in the book. So if you start talking about World War II, I don't know, that's going to be a challenge, huh?
I'm not going to go into that because there are so many people who are wise about what happened in World War II. I want to lead up to it. I want to lead up to what happened that would sort of, from a very isolated story, from a family's perspective, I can lead up into what it was like for them to get into World War II. But once we get into the real facts of that event, I'm going to leave that to the experts.
Yeah. It's tough.
Right.
I ventured into fiction too, and well, that's a different story, but I love it. I love it. But
what do you like about writing fiction?
Well, the world building and stuff like that, and the imagination and that kind of stuff. But that's a different story. That's because my number one thing is kids' books, and it's not about me, it's about you today. So
okay, all right, we'll get back on focus.
yeah, no, but I share your enthusiasm of fiction. I'm just chomping at the bit. I got so many. Actually, I published a couple of fictions too, but I didn't publish my big novel yet, and that's 80% done. But I'm making money with the kids' books, so I should be making more kids' books. And it's the fiction is secondary, but it's funner.
But isn't it fun that kids are reading? Isn't that rewarding for you?
Oh yeah, when you get an email directly from a customer saying, "When's the next book?" or "Thank you, you taught my kid to read. Holy cow, man! I'm saving all of those. I'm going to print some out and put them on the wall." And it's like, yeah, and that's the thing. Last year, or was it 2 years ago? I said, okay, I'm going to give kids' books a pause and start the fiction. Oh, and I got hooked. And then in came mails from nowhere. Said, hey, where's the next kids' book? Said, oh yeah, I'm on it.
Great.
But it was so cool because usually my readers never directly contacted me by email. So I was just knocked off my rocker, and it's like, and then, it's great, huh? When you get that kind of feedback. And one woman asking specifically about a specific book. When's that book coming out? We're waiting for it. And little Johnny's waiting for the books. Oh, I got to get on it,
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's exciting too, because in fiction, there's children's books and the children become so loyal. I just remember in my early career of studying, and that is the children's book authors loved their audience, and their audience was staying with them all the way through childhood and young adulthood. In fiction, your readers will be okay for the first book, but the second book is when the second and the third book is when it really kicks in. That's when the sales really start coming in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. You got to know your audience. So kids' books are also challenging because your readers are not the buyers. The parents have to like it too, because they're buying it.
Right.
But you have to please the kids and the parents, and yeah, it's challenging. Sounds like you've been doing some research too with your audience, huh?
I have. I know about who the majority of readers are. Coming through on the sequel, though, Eric, one of the biggest surprises is how international the sales were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm getting reviews on Amazon from Australia.
Yeah, cool, huh?
I love that. Australia and Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
That really, that's amazing to me. I think that part of it was having a great promoter who was able to really do a good job of getting the book out in the market. I mean, it's only been out since January 4th, and here we are, February 2nd. And it's already sold more than 3,500 copies.
Nice,
So I think,
yeah.
it has a lot to do with being a second book, not a first. First books are tough to promote, but second ones really come through for you. So I'm looking forward to keeping it going.
I was looking on Amazon. It's still #1 in several categories. I think it's good, doing good job there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are you building your email list and talking to your readers?
I am talking to the readers. I'm trying to build the email list. From my business, I've got such an extensive email list, and none of them really care about fiction. So I've got to start all over again. They care more about healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened with me in kids' books. I have thousands on my other nonfiction, and I have about 100 in my kids' books list. So
it's a good start. I'm proud.
Hey, they're the best. They're the best. What? Yeah. Oh boy, but marketing. Oh boy, we can go off on a tangent there too. What do you do about writer's block?
Writer's block to me is that I don't have anything to say. That's when I get writer's block. So what I do is I sit down. This is an exercise that I learned from a creative writing expert, and that is sit down and start typing that says, I don't have anything to say. That's what I type. I don't have anything to say. Adele, you're here someplace. I don't know where you are, but if you'll talk to me, I will type something about it. And so I work my way through. I don't have anything to say because I let my characters start talking to me.
Interesting. I've never heard that method before. You're going to have to name it. Make a nonfiction book about it. Yeah.
I'm afraid somebody taught me how to do that.
That's cool.
You'll have to take
rename it
for it. But usually it's because you're afraid you're going to be writing something that's junk. And so if you go into it saying I'm writing junk, then later on, nobody really knows the junk you wrote because you're not going to show it to them. Yeah. It's just that's how you get through the block.
And
I have something to say.
Yeah. And how long did it take to write your book? How many words is it?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you, this book, Redemption, took me 34 years.
Whoa. Are you serious?
I started it in 1985 or so, 1987. And I didn't publish it until 2017. But
wow.
A lot of life events got in the way.
So what's that, draft 9? What? Go ahead.
Yeah, this one took 2 years.
Okay.
Because I already had my characters established. I already knew what was going on. But Eric, in the first book, I wanted to kill August Beck, stepfather. So I did. I killed him. I had him. And then my agent said, "You can't kill him. He's too important part of the book of the series." So I just had a tractor run over him.
That's cool. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he came back and had a lot more children, so
Yeah. Yeah.
then I wanted some other things to happen to him. I wanted Adele to not be the key. And again, the
Mm.
agent said, no, Adele, it's got to be a struggle between Adele and her stepfather. That's the main theme for all of your books. You got to make sure that all three of them are, that nobody dies in the middle of
Mm.
it. I have a precious little girl in this book. She's the Faye. She's
Mhm.
number I think 6 or 7 or so, and she was damaged in birth, so she has some mental deficiencies. And I love her. In book
Mm.
1, when I was writing it the first time, she died, and
Mm.
so I came back and said, "You can't die. I have to
Yeah.
have you." So she's still alive. She was talking to me and she said, "You can't kill me. I want to be a part of this story." So Faye is
Yeah.
moving on. She's staying
Yeah.
with
That's tough. You can't have it. You J.R. Tolkien killed off Boromir in the third or second book, but yeah, you can't have everybody live in a book like that either. Somebody, I mean, they're warriors. Somebody's got to die, And if
her.
yeah, I got that out of your book too. A lot of the main theme is between Adele and her stepfather, right?
Right.
And so your agent was good. He gave or she gave you some good advice there. So
She did. She did a great job.
yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about your other bestsellers. That was interesting. You had nonfiction, medical, law, and technology. Tell us about your other bestsellers.
So in my career,
Mm.
in my professional career, one of the things that I do is I'm an expert witness.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I go into trials, and
Mm.
usually non-testifying expert witness. So I work with lawyers
Mm. In
and
what
but
in what
oh,
realm?
in healthcare technology,
Oh, okay, okay,
usually
cool.
defending hospitals when somebody's coming in and saying you made a mistake on my record, or you made a mistake in my care. Then we work with doctors. But during the time that I was working with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and I was traveling the country trying to get doctors to adopt at least healthcare technology. Um, there were people in my family that got really sick and they died. So I was a primary caregiver for my mom and my dad, but my brother and my sister also passed away from cancer. And so
Mm.
what I saw is so many similarities in how the caregiver was taking care of the family and trying to use technology. So the book that was a bestseller is called The Caregivers Toolbox.
Mm.
It is all about mobile technology. It's about resources. Don't reinvent being a caregiver. You have many thousands of people who have walked this journey before you. You're not the first one, but you feel like you're the first one when you're the caregiver, because you're all the person has.
Mm.
So this was an enormous amount of research to try to figure out what technology tools could be on my cell phone that I could access right away, make sure that
Mhm.
I was doing the best job possible taking care of my loved one. And when it came out on it's the #1 hot new release for 9 consecutive weeks.
Wow,
And that
cool.
was in 2 different categories. So that was exciting. It's still on the backlist, and that was published by Roman and Littlefield.
And when was this?
That was in 2015.
Nice. So,
Yeah,
Caregivers Toolbox, huh?
right. And
Interesting.
what else that is part of my previous writing? I was a managing editor, and that's the healthcare investigative journalism part. So the American Medical Association called and said, "We've got a lot of books that we need you to package for us."
Ah,
So,
okay.
so I was packaging the books for them, and they were all about privacy and security. I like my fiction
Interesting.
better, Eric.
Yeah.
More fun to
Yeah.
talk about fiction.
Yeah. Well, so we can get back to fiction. How do you write a good character?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um,
Yeah, because I need to know
yeah.
for my book.
So a good character has to have a flaw, and it's usually a flaw that could take them down. It could
Mhm.
put them out of business. But I like them to have. I want them to come to me with a problem. So, when I'm creating a character, I already have a pretty good idea of what their problem is. It's that I don't necessarily want to have all of my problems exposed, but I need for them to feel like it's okay for them to let other people know quietly what their struggle is. So the character has to be at least partially likable, have a problem that they cannot overcome by themselves. They need to have somebody else. They have to be. Do you remember the story of Joseph down in the Bible? It's in Genesis. Remember that Joseph is
Mhm.
put into a pit and there's
Yeah.
no way out.
Mhm.
No way out. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of character I like. You're down in the
Mhm.
pit. There's no way out. How are you going to get out?
Didn't his brothers sell him to the Pharaoh or something?
Yes, they sold him to the. I think it was the Midianites.
Yeah.
Better look that up, Carolyn. I'm not sure you can get sold
Oh
to
boy, we're
that.
in trouble now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
yeah,
read.
that's right. But his brothers did sell him. That's right, and
Yeah.
that was one of the ways that he got out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good story, by the way. But yeah, okay, that's a good tip also. I know it's not a fair question because how do you write a good character? I mean, you can write a book on that one too.
Oh my
Everybody's got.
gosh! And I think many people have done that too. How to write a
Mm,
good character. Several. I'll tell you, Southern writers
mm,
love characters.
hmm,
So if
hmm,
you get a chance to, get into who the character really is, they've got to have a certain way that they talk, a certain way that they move, and it just. Sometimes when I get so involved in a character, it's because I've seen them, I've known them
hmm.
in my life, and
Yeah.
there's a part of me that I love. Yeah, there's
Mm.
part of me that I love about that person. So I want to honor them. At the same time, I want to put them in a pit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably the best author that I read, it was Ayn Rand. I mean, her character development is the whole story actually. And yeah, anyways, not everybody likes her books. Some of her books are really long, but
Yeah.
some of them are very good too. So so who's your favorite author?
Oh, I love John Irving.
Hmm.
I like his fiction. I like the Cider House Rules. That's one
Hmm.
of my favorite books. But contemporary, I really like Kristen Hanna. And I
Okay.
like her historical fiction. She writes, she did one of the best stories that she did was Nightingale, the Nightingale. That was a huge bestseller. And then, I like stories that women write, and I like stories about fiction. I like stories about a woman who just is strong. She has gone
Mm.
through a lot of issues and come out uh, in a better place because of that.
Mm.
When it comes to nonfiction, I mean, I live in South Carolina. I love Pat Conroy.
Ah,
Love
okay.
his books, and my
Mm.
husband keeps trying to get property on Defusky Island.
Hmm. Okay.
And I'm
Pat
not sure we're
Conroy.
going to do that. Defusky Island is
Huh.
one of the first places where he went to teach.
Oh,
He would
okay.
go there by boat, and so his one of the that was Conrack. I don't know if you remember the movie Conrack, but it was one of the first movies that was made about Pat Conroy.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
his book is all about his reading life, and what I like about that is he talks about the books that he chose to read, and
Hmm.
it kind of gives me an overview of books that I'd like to read as well.
Yeah, so many books, huh? I've been devouring audiobooks lately. because yeah, not enough time. But
Yeah. So are you going to take your stories? Are you going to take any of your fiction into audio, into Audible or into audiobooks?
oh yeah, when I get around to it, I'm doing that with my kids' books. And there's an interesting development, and that is you can publish your audiobooks on YouTube. Now, the problem is you have to be monetized, and you can make money with your audiobooks on YouTube also. So you have to get to that level, especially if you have a new YouTube channel. They have barriers to entry now. I don't know if it's 1,000 or 10,000 before you can monetize your channel, but you have to have for sure over 1,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And also so many thousand views per day. Okay. And then you can monetize your audiobooks on YouTube. And I forgot which author was already doing that.
Wow.
And she's posting her results. She's one of a romance author. She's doing pretty well with it, actually. And so I'm doing that with my kids' books, and I will definitely do that with the fiction books once a matter of fact, I already did, actually, but not the one I'm writing right now, my new novel.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. And it's much easier than making videos and stuff, because the audio editing tools, they're much faster, much easier to master and stuff. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool. Good to know.
so yeah, you must do audiobooks. That's like you have to now, you know.
I do. Yeah. And I'm probably
Yeah.
going to put them on Audible because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't mind having a channel, but I'd like to get them up there. Some
Mm.
people have said, I'll listen to your books as soon as you put it on Audible. So,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah, I've had mixed results. You're not going to sell as much audiobooks as your normal, your print and your ebooks
mhm.
in the beginning. So don't expect to make the same amount of money with your audibles. And I use Findaway Voices in draft to digital. It's easier to use. And another thing is, if you're in Europe, Audible might not even be accessible for you as an author. So I just put everything on Findaway Voices, and it works really well, much easier to use than Audible. But you have to do your research. There's advantages to publishing directly with Amazon, and also disadvantages too, because they lock you in for longer. So you really have to read about that. It's like KDP Select. Audible does the same thing. They want you to be select, and they lock you into, I forgot how many years it is, or months. So be careful before you make that little check mark.
Yeah, I agree. So Eric, one of the things that I learned is, Amazon will assign the AISN, which is your online, your ebook. They'll assign an ISBN number for you. If I take the Amazon ISBN number, I can't go anyplace with it. So I purchased, my little company, Jeremy Press, we have our own book of ISBN numbers from our broker, Bowker. And so
Yeah.
we use our own ISBN numbers. That way we can get it on different locations. We can get it into Ingram's, get it into
Yeah.
different distributors, whereas Amazon's kind of closed up about that.
Boy, we're going to have to do another podcast about that, because that's another area I want to get into but haven't gotten into yet, is Ingram's and all the other possibilities. And yes. So yeah, think about it before you hit that ISBN or the select
Right.
in Audible.
Right.
What so do you have a favorite book?
Of all the books that I've done?
No, of any book.
Oh, of
or
any
author.
book. Oh gosh, yes, that would be the Bible.
Okay. Besides the Bible, besides the Bible, because that's the number one answer to that question.
Okay.
So do you have a favorite book besides the Bible?
Whatever book I'm working on right now is my favorite book.
Okay, cool.
That's that's kind of a cheesy answer, but but it is. It's the one that takes up the most time. I'll tell you, one of the best books that I've ever written is, that I've ever read is The Nightingale by Kristen Hahn.
Yeah.
That was really it was a well done book. As an author, she's written a lot of books. Just that's what we do as authors. We write a lot of books, and one or two of them will be spectacular. I just really liked how she managed the Nightingale. And I'm also reading a book right now. Well, I don't have it beside me. It's not like the storyline is so compelling, but she writes so beautifully. And so now I'm going to have to send you the name of this author so that we can, fit it in here later on. But I just
Yeah.
love well-written books they're kind of slanted towards the literary, but still have a good that still have a good plot line to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. I see a question that you added. What have you noticed about the publishing industry for 2022?
What I've noticed is that if you write a book and you want an agent to sell it for you, so in 2022, you are going to have to wait 3 years for it to come out. And it used to be a year and a half. But Eric, here's what's going on in the publishing industry, and that is publishers, people are reading the hardcover books. This is making a comeback. Okay, because people like to sit in front of wherever they are. They like to have something at the beach with them. The problem with taking your device with you to the beach is that the sun gets in your eyes and you can't read it, so, unless you've got a new device. So the paperbacks and the hardbacks are coming back because it's part of the collector's item. But the other thing is that the publishing houses don't have the editorial staff on payroll enough to be able to produce the books fast enough. So if you write fiction and you sell it through to a publishing house, the publishing house, that's great. I love having publishing houses. They're going to be my best friend one of these days. But the publishing houses don't have the bandwidth to edit your fiction. They will put a copy editor on your nonfiction, but if you're the expert in an area, I'm an expert in privacy, security, and caregiving, they're going to take my word for it, and they're going to challenge a couple of things, but mainly it's just going to go to press the way that we pulled it together. Fiction requires, in my mind, it requires a really good editor. And those editors are so slammed right now that they just can't take on more books until there's an opening. So that's why self-publishing, anybody can self-publish right now. And so I don't like necessarily the idea of self-publishing. I like the idea of going through layers of criticism and making sure that you've got the best book ready to go to market. Don't just publish because you can.
Yeah. It's interesting, and you see that also with the recent success, not so recent, Andy Weir from the Mars and Shades of Grey. They all self-published. And when they went up to a certain level, that's when the agents and publishing houses saw them. And I also recently interviewed a guy named Benjamin Hardy, who also got a publishing deal. And he said, you have to have your own email list with, what did he say, 100,000 subscribers before the publishing houses even look at you, So that's what I did. He went out and got it and did it. And
wow.
Yeah. So you got to do all the marketing yourself before they even look at you nowadays. And yeah, it's tough.
Well, Eric, that's why my publishing company, J. Merrill Press, has a specific focus, and that is we focus on strong women characters, and that's the most important part to me, is that we get women's voices out there. But the problem that I've run into with the publishing houses as well is that they don't have they're not going to take the time to look at like how many sales you've got until you sold, maybe until you've got like a $50,000 that you've that the people have paid for you. So the economy is just so much higher for the publishing houses to be able to walk in and pull out some of the books, and that's why I know that's one of the reasons that they're looking for people with 100,000 emails, but I mean, goodness sakes, that's your whole life.
Yeah.
You can't, for you to get 100,000 emails,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So it is pretty crazy. And I keep asking these guys, if you have such a large following, why would you go to the publisher? You're already,
Yeah, that's
but
a good question.
well, Andy Weir got a movie deal. So, but however, you can't guarantee that, and he said, well, he just wants to write. He doesn't want to bother with the other stuff. Okay. Yeah. If you can do that, but
That's why he's productive.
yeah,
Because he doesn't have to focus on marketing. But
yeah.
I'm sure he had a team of people. So as a small press, I'm outsourcing just like the big companies do. I'm just outsourcing for 2 or 3 books rather than outsourcing for 100 books. And that's what the company does. We outsourced a promotion, a promotional company. Man, they did a great job.
Yeah.
And we outsourced editing to a person who hangs her hat on being a really good national editor. And so it's worth the money to do that if you're going to be published at all.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to continue reading your book, but
Oh,
before
you're
I do
so
that,
good.
yeah. Before I do that, though, I have to ask you my favorite question. If you could eat dinner with anyone, past, present, or future, who would it be?
Oh, well, let me tell you, I've already gotten a chance to eat dinner with Steven Spielberg.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and
And
that
did you
was
tell?
really fun.
Oh, well, you should have
10 other
told
people
me.
at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have given you questions for him to ask because I'm unhappy with some of his movies, but that's okay. That was your
Yeah,
dinner.
that was a long time ago. The other person I'd like to eat dinner with is Noah.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
Noah, because, I mean, talk about a guy who steps out on a limb and
Yeah.
builds an ark when there's no rain. I mean, there wasn't any rain when he built it. It was just
He was
water seeping
crazy.
up from the ground.
Well, they
And
thought he
he's
was
trying to tell
crazy.
his family, no, really, it's going to rain. I'm going to build an ark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to have dinner with him sometime and just say,
Yeah.
how did you cut down all those trees? You
Yeah.
shaved them
Yeah.
into a boat?
That'd be crazy, huh? I heard it never rains in Egypt or that area. And
It
so
didn't. It
why
was
would
all
he
spring
build an
fed.
ark,
Yeah, it was all spring fed until the first rain.
You got to have some faith to do that, man, or somebody's talking to you from above, hearing
Yes.
voices.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, writers never hear voices, we just kind of don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Do you have a morning routine?
I do. It's pretty strict morning routine. So the first thing I do is I get up and I exercise. I work out. I either go for a walk for about 2 miles or maybe 2.5 miles, depends on how far I feel like going. And then I come back and after I've been exercising, then I fill myself up with the Word of God. And that's just a whole lot of emotional, because a lot of words as much as everything else. So in between those 2 things, I eat breakfast and take all my vitamins,
Yeah.
a few vitamins, just enough to keep me going during the day. But I feel like if I invoke the Holy Spirit to come in to be a part of my life during the day, I'm awake, I'm more alert, and I can tap into that spiritual realm that I know that when I'm writing, even though a few cuss words might come out, it's okay. I'm being forgiven.
That's cool. Yeah. A preemptive strike. So, yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely.
You get up early?
Not ever on purpose.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm usually moving around by about 7:30 in the morning. So most writers get up, if they're an early riser, they're going to get up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I just go back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough, huh? Yeah. I tried that. I was in the Air Force, and so I vowed to never do that again, but I can do it, but I never liked it. And you gravitate towards your natural time. So
I think so
I'm,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, I need the
So,
motivation from the sun.
yeah. Yeah, important. Vitamin D, super duper important in these COVID times, you
Yeah,
know. It's
absolutely.
it's playing a bigger and bigger role, they're finding out. And
Yeah.
anyway, so what's the one question you wish people would ask you, but don't?
Yeah, I had to think about that one for a while. I saw that, and the one question is, where do your characters come from? So, uh, only English teachers ask me that,
Uh-huh.
and I
Uh-huh.
appreciate the question. Characters come from people who have made an impact on my life. Uh, you know, um, so Adele is in the series. Adele is a combination of multiple young ladies who my daughter befriended when she was young, and she didn't. She's 46 or so now, but when she was a child, she had such an open heart that she didn't see class, she didn't see status, she didn't see labels, and didn't understand anybody who did have to wear, whatever, the Britney Spears, the Jordache, or, whatever is the
Mm,
current label right now. She just looked at the person for who that person is. And I loved the people she got to know because of
mm,
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my characters come a lot from her childhood friends because
Mm,
they were just so honest,
mm,
and um, they would show they would they wouldn't necessarily showcase their pain. They would sort of be honest and forthright about that really hurt,
mm,
and now I can see why it would hurt them.
mm.
So I want to be a much more compassionate person when I'm writing about my characters. So I love it when
Interesting.
somebody says, "Where did she come from?"
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's important. Huh? That's interesting. Well, and I'm gonna have to read your book some more.
Thank you. Oh,
So
thank
where can we get your book? Do you have any offers or specials going on right now?
you.
It's
In
number
fact, we're
one
going
on
to
Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be we're running a 50% off on the paperback,
Uh-huh.
and that's going to be that is on right now, and it's
Oh,
going to be and so it's going to be lasting for the next 30 days. And if it goes well, so right now I haven't raised the price just because you told me that they that they sell for more. But after 30 days, I'm thinking we're going to raise the price, and then but most of the people who have read Reconciliation know that it's a standalone book. You don't have to have the first book in order to understand what happened in the second book, but it sure helps. So that's the feedback I get from readers. So that's where we're doing a 2-book package. And
awesome.
that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that Amazon was able to do that. I just got the confirmation today that Amazon is going to allow us to run that promo.
Nice, nice. 50% off. I like it. Great.
Thank you. That's on the paperback.
Yeah. Paperback is better than the ebook as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah, I agree. But shipping it is Amazon's problem, not mine.
yeah, that's the nice. They do that well. They do that really well. It's
Well,
got a new hardback today. So, anyways, so
oh,
where can we
good.
reach you? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the best places to reach me are going to be through, I monitor my Gmail Press email. So it's Carolyn@jmerrillpress.com. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Mhm.
I'm on Facebook. All you got to do is Carolyn Palmer Hartley. Palmer is my
Mhm.
maiden name, Carolyn Palmer Hartley. And that'll get you to my Facebook. That'll get you to Instagram. I'm also on Instagram, Carolyn P. Hartley at
Cool.
Instagram. So that's where I'm on Instagram quite a bit.
And you got a website too, carolynhartleybooks.com.
I do. I do.
Excellent.
That's a condition of, I'm starting to do some blogging on that one.
Hmm.
And Eric, let me tell you, blogging is, it's something you have to put time, you have to set time aside for that. But you
Hmm.
probably know that, right?
Yeah,
So there's writing and
definitively.
then there's
Yes.
blogging. And but during doing the research, I found out so many cool things about coal mines and the
Hmm.
people who work in coal mines. So, I'm going to start blogging a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, and don't forget the salt mines. I was in the salt mine in Poland, and they have a huge ballroom in the bottom of dancing 200 meters below the earth, and they have a ballroom, and we had a swing dance event there. It was the most awesome time ever, and
Weird.
that's in Poland. I can't say the name, but it's south of Krakow, Poland. Oh boy, you got to go there if you like mines. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I
All
like
right. Well,
yeah, it's great.
it's been wonderful talking to you. We're going to have to do another one talking about the publishing industry and geeking out on other things, you know?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Eric, you're fun.
Okay.
You're a great, it's a good duet, it's a good
Yeah.
song and, pushing back and forth. So thank you so much for letting me be on
You're welcome.
today.
Thank you for persevering through the technology. And I look forward to seeing you again, talking to you again.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks, Eric.
Okay.